I'm Akosua Adoma Owusu, and I'm the film director, cinematographer for Reluctantly Queer, which is a story about a Ghanaian man's trying to reconcile his love for his mother and same-sex desire in contemporary Ghana.
I'm Alexis Biscombe. I'm the editor-composer for the film.
Dear Ma, I'm alone in my quiet abode, almost 5,000 miles across the Atlantic, reflecting on the journey that you and Daddy, have helped me pursue. On this day, I wish you were near me, affording my senses the soft hues of your compassion and sheer virtue.
My first question to you is, when did you start thinking about this project? Just like literally, like, you know, in your head, kind of like imagining it.
With Reluctantly Queer?
Yes.
Well, you know, I think this was just a very organic process. Kwame, who is the protagonist in this film, he's a very good friend of mine, and I just created this film at a time where I was desperate to return to my old way of working, which is just me and my camera with a friend, somebody who I really care about or who I know, as author, producer, director. And he's currently working on his dissertation of the same name, Reluctantly Queer, at the University of Virginia. And I just picked up my camera and said, let me do a portrait of you to kind of complement your essay that you're working on. So this is a visual interpretation of the text that he's currently working on now.
And what role does this letter form play? Like when did that come into the entire film project?
I think this is something that he had been thinking about for a while. The film is a letter to his mother. About being queer and what it's like to be gay in America, and it's about being black, gay, male, and Ghanaian. And so the film is the letter, and he's reaching out to his mother in America across the Atlantic. And I felt that it was just a great way for me to take his text and translate that into a cinematic medium or cinematic form.
What interests you about combining text and image? Why don't you only work with audio or voices? Like where's the power, in your opinion, between or combining both in a way?
I've always felt that I'm a visual, I'm able to communicate through visual language, and it's just great because Kwame is such a literal, he's a writer, and so I think the pairing of his text and my visuals, they kind of complement each other, and it's really a symbol of our relationship because our relationship is very parallel to each other. The subject matter of the film, Reluctantly Queer, is really about him dealing with his internal struggles of being identifying as gay, and I am also dealing with my external struggles of being a Ghanaian and American and a woman of a Ghanaian American or African descent. So I find that thematically it just sort of worked together and came in sync.
And the film takes place mainly in a house, or in an apartment, in the bedroom. That's it. Like the personal spaces in the bedroom, in the bathroom too. Very private, intimate spaces where you either do take care of your body or personal hygiene, washing. What role do these spaces play for you?
Well, it's a domestic space really, and because the film is written, he wrote this film to his mother, the mother becomes like a metaphor of home, really, and the domestic space. But with Reluctantly Queer, we kind of take that further, or trying to kind of transcend this notion of home. When we think of identity, we think of identity as a home or a place that we can locate, right? Or even the term queer can be considered home because it's something that we can identify with. But at the same time, I think that we're looking beyond that with reluctance and this certain sense of uncertainty and kind of disrupting that term of queerness and having it be a little bit more inclusive and inviting people into this private sphere, this private space. And it was a natural, environment and a natural collaboration.
Do you remember when you watched it the first time, how you perceived it, or what did you feel?
The raw footage or our finished version of it?
Did you see the different stages?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So, then you can talk about the entire process if you want. But
Yeah, well, I mean, when I received the footage from Adoma, it really resonated with me because it was shot on film. It had this dreamlike, hazy quality. And what was really nice is when we were editing together, with Kwame's lyrical way of speaking, we were able to create a lyrical edit, an edit that has a musicality to it. And, we were also able to, through the edit, sort of highlight that queerness, that otherness that he felt, when he's washing, he sort of becomes this alien character a little bit.
Amphibious. He calls it an amphibious character, right? This whole idea of queer being otherworldly, or he kind of this transformation process, right? He's bathing this dark-skinned black man becoming white, and what does that mean to be reluctantly queer, right?
Yeah, because he's struggling. He's, obviously he's queer, he's gay, but he's strongly Ghanaian, and he's wondering aloud to his mother, does being one thing mean he has to give up the other thing? That's how I read it. So, yeah.
And what role does whiteness play, really explicitly, when you see him with a white partner or lover in the bed? And just also on a sort of color level, or really, obvious level, how do you negotiate that?
Well, I mean, first of all, the film was shot in black and white, right? So, I mean, aesthetically, that was it was for aesthetic reasons, but also, I mean, the person could be anybody, really. I mean, we don't quite see the character, the white character in the film. It's really just about bodies and this human, this same-sex desire or heterosexual desire. It's a human thing, and it's really about him being black in America and what it's like that struggle of being black in America and that struggle of being queer in Ghana, right? And he's writing this letter across the Atlantic, speaking to his mother, but in terms of the white character in the film, I don't think it's a primary focus. It's really about him and that connection that he has with his mother as being the symbol of home, he's far away from home, and what does home mean? That we're always at this constant state of wanting to belong or wanting to find that place of home. And
Where did you shoot it?
We shot it in Virginia, where I was born and raised, and where I learned filmmaking. And it's interesting because Kwame is now he's now going to school there. We met in Ghana, but he's now doing his studies and working in Virginia, where I'm from. So there is this kind of serendipitous connection that we have between Virginia, where I consider home, and Ghana, where I also consider home, and this kind of weaving of these two worlds in this kind of new queer cinema, really.
So what are your hopes? I mean, I know personally how complex and difficult and challenging all these diaspora lives and identities, and how quickly things become very political, how quickly sexuality can become political, and how dangerous it can become from one second to the other. what do you envision? What do you hope for? You know, like the only thing we have as human beings compared to animals maybe is that hope thing, or that, you know, envisioning into the future. And you know, where's the potential in all this complexity of like diaspora life, and you know, where's home, and like all these very human questions?
Well, I guess my hope in general is just to continue telling stories, really, and to put a voice or face to, you know, there are very few stories or films about what it's like to be an African queer man, right? And I think, I hope that this opens up the door for more stories and more people from the continent of Africa really being able to identify with Kwame's story, and being able to kind of revive or bring more narratives that where people can identify with this type of consciousness.
Yeah. Do you also feel that trap of, you know, for us it's often easy to go back to the West, or go back to America, or back to Europe, and you know, but there are also people that live in Ghana or in Ethiopia, in my case, that do not have that privilege and are very much, you know, easily exposed to oppression and, you know, physical oppression too. And you know, what do you think about that? Like, it's a huge. I think it's a huge problem, and it's like we as people that live and work freely and can move freely. It's an amazing privilege, and I guess we have to use it wisely in a way. But there are also people that don't have it, and that often, you know, the weaker you are, the more you are like exposed. The more vulnerable you are.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I do feel that I'm able to make this film because I'm American-born Ghanaian, right? And that, you know, Kwame and I, we're in America, we can create this type of film from here. I'm pretty sure we would face a little bit more obstacles if we were in Ghana, right? So I do feel that as that I have this cultural privilege, and that it is my duty to kind of use this medium that I have access to, whether it's 16 millimeter film, which is also a privileged medium, right, to tell stories that matter. And I hope that, you know, people who don't have access and feel a little bit oppressed can find themselves in his story.
What are your next projects?
I have a feature in development called Black Sunshine that I'm working on. And I'm also adapting a short story by an African author, which I'm shooting in a few months from now. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. How were the reactions at this festival so far from the audience? What did they? Did they ask?
Mostly positive.
Yeah. I can imagine. Like,
I'm reluctantly queer, you know. So it's been pretty great. Yeah.
Did they ask stuff, or?
I'm sorry?
Did they ask questions, or did you have conversations with people?
Absolutely. Afterwards, of course, yeah. And a lot of people just can relate to the narrative. You know, it's not about the, you know, people, when we talk about queer or gay, it's always about the sex and same-sex desire, and like, you know, and people can really just focus on the story and the narrative. And I think that's my primary goal with every film that I make, is that to just have it be about the stories and about the narratives, and, you know, it's not really about, you know, I'm not trying to be edgy or different just because the subject matter of the film is something that people may not quite feel comfortable talking about, but just to allow people to find themselves in this mundane everyday of just bathing, washing, you know, and find the beauty of just these things, you know.
How, from an editing point of view, do you tell good stories? What do you need?
That's such a large question.
But that's like, we always forget it. Like, it's so, that's like the most important part in the end, you know, like what do you pick, what do you abandon, what do you know, what composition do you choose? It's really powerful. We all know that.
Yeah,
but, you know,
definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think with this film in particular, like Adoma mentioned, you know, it's the mundane, it's these everyday actions. But one of the most exciting things when you're editing footage like this, like even in those mundane actions, like there's like a moment of beauty or something strange that will repeat itself or will appear. And for me, I really like highlighting those moments, you know.
A perfect example is like, because I shot the film with somebody who I know and care about, it's like I wasn't really quite thinking about the technical aspects of it. Like there was, I remember at one point, like there was a shot that was like completely out of focus, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's out of focus. And Aaron's like, oh yeah, we should just throw it in and keep it in, you know. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, that's so cool, that's so great.
Yeah,
you know?
find the beauty in all
yeah,
of this.
you know, and I'm like, all right, you know, and it worked. It was just that organic process of creating and making, and not really quite focusing too much on like these sort of technical glitches,
like
you know, conventions,
like when you're doing like narratives and stuff, there's just like
poetry.
Beginning, middle, and end. Like everything has to happen in this specific sequence. But within a film like this, where you're writing a letter, like a lot of the choices you make have to do with like creating a mood that supports what he's saying, you know. So.
Wow, and you were really successful in doing it.
I mean, well, you know, thanks. No, just kidding. I tried. No, just kidding.
No, it's great, really. Thank you so much, and I hope you have
so
like great
much for
encounters
having me.
with people.
I mean,
at the
I really
festival.
had a blast. You know, it's been really great talking to you.
Yes.
For sure. And happy
Same
birthday,
here.
you know.
Thank you. Oh,
like
yeah.
It's like 30 years.
You can say it into the camera.
Oh, okay,
maybe.
so all right. Well, happy birthday. Teddy Awards is like, what, your 30th anniversary?
Yes.
And, you know, I was like, what, 2 years old when you guys were?
That's a compliment.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I'll take it as a compliment.
So, yeah, happy birthday. It's been pretty awesome. And I hope that you have many more years to come. Sure.
Almost 5,000 miles across the Atlantic, reflecting on the journey that you and Daddy, have helped me pursue. On this day, I wish you were near me, affording my senses the soft hues of your compassion and sheer virtue.
My first question to you is, when did you start thinking about this project? Just like literally, like, you know, in your head, kind of like imagining it.
With Reluctantly Queer.
Yes.
Well, you know, I think this was just a very organic process. Kwame, who is the protagonist in this film, he's a very good friend of mine, and I just created this film at a time where I was desperate to return to my old way of working, which is just me and my camera with a friend, somebody who I really care about or who I know, as author, producer, director. And he's currently working on his dissertation of the same name, Reluctantly Queer, at the University of Virginia. And I just picked up my camera and said, let me do a portrait of you to kind of complement your essay that you're working on. So this is a visual interpretation of the text that he's currently working on now.
And what role does this letter form play? Like when did that come into the entire film project?
I think this is something that he had been thinking about for a while. The film is a letter to his mother. About being queer and what it's like to be gay in America, and it's about being black, gay, male, and Ghanaian, and so the film. I'm Akosua Adoma Owusu, and I'm the film director, cinematographer for Reluctantly Queer, which is a story about a Ghanaian man's trying to reconcile his love for his mother and same-sex desire in contemporary Ghana.
I'm Alexis Biscombe. I'm the editor-composer for the film.
Dear Ma, I'm alone in my quiet
is the letter, and he's reaching out to his mother in America across the Atlantic, and I felt that it was just a great way for me to take his text and translate that into a cinematic medium or cinematic form.
What interests you about combining text and image? Why don't you only work with audio or voices? Like where's the power in your opinion between